In our webinar, we're going to spend time talking about a telesales process that we find once agents use it, they like it real well. It's got a lot of advantages. You can use it in two different situations. We will get into that here in a minute. During the webinar, if you have a question, of course, you can always type that question in your little typing box down there, and I think Rashawn and I will try and answer those as we go through here. But if there's something that we don't get answered, we'll for sure open it up to the end where we can all ask questions, get your questions answered. So again, thank you for joining us. Let's get started talking about the Telesales app. Tell you a little bit about what we want to talk about today. We want to introduce to you the Heartland National Life's new telesales process. When we set this up, I remember I was the so-called guinea pig to try this, and I was here in my office in Blue Springs, Missouri, and I had a client in Columbia, Missouri, who had just got a large rate increase. I called her up, went through the program, covered all the aspects that I need to cover, which I will share with you here shortly on what you will need to do. And by the end of that telephone call, she was set up for a new product, and we will show you how we use that process. We want to tell you a few reasons about why we think you would use the tele-app process, give you some examples of where it works extremely well. We want to cover all the mechanics going through the process, whether it's at the kitchen table or whether it's in a call center situation. So what we consider would be the kitchen table. When I say call center, that would be what I would be referring to as a remote sale. Kind of take a look at the results of what you can expect as an agent for using this, and at the end go through some updates here at Heartland National Life. So what is the tele-app process? First off, guys, girls, gals, it's not a drug screen or a pre-qualification call. This is a complete process to when once you complete the call, you will have an effective date of the approved policy. Should it be approved, you will have a policy number in your hand. I don't know, some of you veterans on here, if you go back in the day when Standard Life and Accident had you could actually have a policy issued in the home, the actual policy. That they were the only one company I ever seen do that. But this is about as close to that as we can get. You will have a policy number in your hand when the application is completed in full, and that is all done over the phone. First off, the only paper, there's two situations that says there's none. There actually is. You know, there's no paper for the application, but if you're replacing a policy, you have a replacement form that has to be generated, and you can do that a couple of different ways. We'll cover that as we go through the mechanics of how you do this. The application is fully underwritten when you get done. Right now we're running at about a 96% issue rate. And if you are doing an open enrollment or a guaranteed issue situation, we're looking at about a 15-minute process. However, guys, gals, as we go through this, you will see that if there is a series of medications that a client is using, or maybe during the verification of the medication, it will take closer to 20 to 25 minutes from start to finish. And again, that depends on the speed of how your client is picking things up. But if you're in an open enrollment guaranteed issue situation where we don't have to answer, ask health questions or ask for medication, verify medications, then usually this process can be done in as little as 15 minutes, and that is start to finish. So anyway, we'll cover more of that as we go on through here. So what we're telling you is you have a situation to where you'll have an instant issue Medicare supplement policy by the end of the telephone call. So why would you want to use the tele-app? Well, first off, I come from a sales background. I started an insurance business in 1984 in the sales field, selling nothing but Medicare supplement, final expense, cancer plans. And that was a bit it. Long-term care really wasn't even available back then, so I guess what I'm trying to tell you guys is when I tell you these things, it's because I've done it as a result of my own experience. I'm not just some guy that's been sitting here and I've never sold a policy. I've wrote thousands of policies in the last 28 years. So the good thing about this is you got immediate results. There's no guessing if the policy is issued or declined. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you say you drive an hour to an appointment and you write a Medicare supplement, you take it back, you do what you need to do at your office, you mail it into the company or fax it into the company, however you get business from one company to the other, from your company to the insurance company. Then it may take you 7 to 8 days, maybe 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks to get a policy issued. Or, worst case scenario, you find out the policy's declined. So you guys know what I'm talking about. Now you got to drive back to the client's house. Then you got to kind of get the egg off of your face, and hopefully the client will give you another shot of putting that business with another company. So you don't have that with this type of process. You know right at the end of the call whether they're issued or whether they're not, and at that point you can be right there. You don't have to make another trip back. So you get immediate results, and what we find, that's a better and a quicker result for your client. It's going to give you a lot more flexibility. You can just stay there at the end of the month. I'll show you some examples here when we get to that on how this is going to work. It's going to help you create your business model over the phone. This process works extremely well for you guys out there that have a call center, or maybe somebody setting appointments for you to where you know got a little extra information going into that situation. You can actually get on the phone, you get a result right there. So you're going to get a lot better return on your time. And I think that's very important in today's world where gas is getting close to $3.50 a gallon here in the Midwest. So depending on where you're at, you may be already paying $3.50 for gas. So trying to help you cut some corners and save some money, and an old saying, time is money, and that could never be more true than in today's environment. We want to try and do what we call next day pay. Now I really want to take just a second here and explain what that means. Next day pay does not mean that you write the policy today and you get paid tomorrow. Generally what we're referring to on next day pay is once we send a draft out, say you get on the phone and you get your process complete and there's no outstanding requirements, everything is done just like it should be. You write an app today, we're probably not going to send that bank draft out until tomorrow. Once that bank draft clears, which should take maybe a half a day or a day, at that point then we will key in the commission. So if you write one today and you're not paid by the end of this week, you'll have contact information here at the end of the seminar or webinar. I want you to get in touch with me. We're in the process of implementing a new system, and every time you do that, we're running it parallel with the old system right now. So every now and then that something falls through the cracks, but I can't fix the problem if I don't know you've got one. So if you have a problem with that, if you're not getting paid quickly with this process, for God's sakes, get on the phone and let us work on it, and we'll make sure that we get it fixed for you. Another key area of why we think you'll want to use the Tele app is it will help you defend your existing clientele. If you guys know what I'm referring to, I had a lady that I talked to the other day that had family life. She went from $210 to $290 a month. And this was like at the end of last month. If I remember right, the date was like 7/25, July the 25th. And I got her on the phone. We got the underwriting on the phone after I'd done everything, after I'd made the sale on the phone. I got her on the phone with the underwriting department. We got an approval. We had an 8/1 effective date. Once the underwriter hung up, I told her to stay on the phone to get her ID card out. And we would call Family Life and tell them not to draft her bank account in August. She was canceling it. It was too expensive for her. And that process from start to finish took a little over 30 minutes. And I'm talking about underwriting for me actually getting her comfortable with a Plan F with Heartland National Life, explaining the policy to her, getting the underwriting department on the phone, getting a policy number. She actually heard them say, because we were all three on the phone, she actually heard them say the policy number. I don't remember what it was, but the underwriter read the policy number off, and she said that policy will be effective on August 1st, and that had been verified with the client when she was on the phone, and then re-verified when I got back on the phone. So what happened there is she doesn't have to pay the extra $80 in August, which had I have sent her an app to sign, her mail it back to me, me get it to the underwriting department, I assure you she would have had to pay the $290 at least one more month. So it was a win-win situation for everybody involved. I got a sale on the books, and she got a new product and didn't have to pay an additional $80. She actually saved a little over $100 that month on that. So it was a good situation for her. So where do we use this? We have actually two selling platforms. The first selling platform we want to talk about is what I grew up with, kitchen table selling. It's where, you actually drive to the people's house, you sell it right there in their home. And then the second process we want to talk about is the remote selling situation. But let's go ahead and talk primarily about the kitchen table. So the first step on the kitchen table sale is, number one, you've got to set the appointment, and then you got to drive to the client's house and you actually make the sale in the home. It's a process that probably all of us grew up with on here, more so than the call center situation. So you go to the house, you make the sale. The next thing you're going to do then is you're going to call our tele-underwriting hotline. And if you don't worry about writing that number down right now, that is the right number, but all of that will be posted at the end of the webinar, where I'll leave the last slide up where you can actually write these numbers down as I go through them. So you get the underwriting department on the telephone, and she will complete the application, and I'll get a little bit more in depth into that here in just a minute. She'll get information from you. She'll get information from the client. She will complete the application. She will assign a policy number right there on the phone. The policy will be issued, and you're on to the next sale. So let's kind of back up and break down that process as we go and talk about the mechanics. So we're going to go ahead and dial the toll-free number, 866-916-8818. That's the underwriting number. And the first step that we're going to do is we're going to talk about what is required of you, the agent. And for all you on the phone, should you want a copy of all this, because I know I'm going through a lot of information here, we have this on slides. We can email it to you to where you can actually be, get prepared for this process. So the agent process will start out. The tele-underwriter is going to ask and verify the following information from you, the agent. Number one, she's going to verify that you're appointed with Heartland National Life and licensed in that state to sell a product that you're selling. Now, that shouldn't be an issue if you're doing kitchen table selling, because 9 times out, unless you're living in a border state, 9 times out of 10, if you're in Missouri, you're selling a policy in Missouri. But in a call center situation, you may be in Missouri and calling Oklahoma, and in that case, the underwriter is going to make sure that, yes, you are licensed in that state. So that's the first thing that you're going to find the underwriter to do, is to ask you to make sure, or she will check her records to make sure that you are appointed and licensed in that state. Okay, then she's going to ask for your applicant's name. She'll get their full name, you'll repeat their name, middle initial if they have one, the last name. And she's going to ask you what you want to do for an effective date. Do you want the day you're writing the policy? Do you want it to be the September the 1st? Do you want it to be October the 1st? Or maybe you're in an open enrollment situation and you want it to be effective November the 1st. So she will verify that with you, and she will re-verify that at the end. She'll ask you what kind of a bank draft that she wants, or what you want for the bank draft date to be. Do you want it to be now, the day you're writing it? Do you want it to be the 1st of the next month? But she will take time to verify that with you. Okay, so it's important that you have all this stuff discussed by the time that you get the underwriter on the phone. You, of course, will make the sale before you ever call our hotline or the underwriting line, and these are things that you will have already established. So it's very important that you're prepared when you start talking to the underwriter. So she's going to get the bank draft dates established. Where do you want the policy sent? Do you want it sent to you or to the client? Guys, gals, I don't care how you do it. I always have the policy sent to myself. I like to look at it, make sure everything's complete, make sure that if I ask for a 9/1 effective date, that is what I got. But a lot of agents would prefer just to save cost. They want it sent directly to the client. So that's your choice. We'll send it wherever you want. She will ask that question of you. She will ask what city and state the application was taken in. So that shouldn't be hard. You should have a lot of information prior. She's going to want to know the name of the carrier that you're replacing. If you're replacing Mutual of Omaha, Standard Life, whoever that you're replacing, she's going to want to ask that. She's going to ask you, and this is the most important part of the application process. Don't forget to read on page 3 of the application the important statements to be read and signed by the applicant. She's going to ask you if you have done that. She may ask the client if you have done that. So what I always do is I turn to page 3 and I'll say, Ms. Jones, they're going to ask you and me this question. Sometimes they just ask me, but I have seen them ask both. Make sure that you say yes if they ask you if I have read these important statements to you. And if you're in the kitchen table selling, then you would want to make sure they sign that app. You don't have to, but I always do for my own records. But they will ask that question. It's on page 3. Make sure you're familiar with that when you look at the applications. Okay, at this point, they're going to hand the phone, or they're going to ask you to put the client on the telephone. And at that point, the underwriter is going to ask some basic questions. She's going to go ahead and finish the application. If you guys get an application out and look on page 1 of that application, you'll see the questions that she's going to start out with are just the same thing that's on the application. She's going to go ahead now and ask the client for Social Security number. You're going to want to make sure that the client knows their Social Security number. And if I'm in a kitchen table situation doing this, I've got all that filled out on the first page of the app, and so if they, sometimes most people know it, sometimes they don't. I've got that filled in right there along with their Medicare number, and it's important that you let the client know that they're going to ask that question, because they're going to ask them to verify their Social Security number one more time at the end of the interview. So then they're going to go through their full name. Again, they're going to ask that. They're going to ask them their date of birth. And as you look through, if you have an application in front of you, you can see all they're doing is just filling in the application. Everything that's on an app that you normally would fill out in this process, we are doing for you at the home office. So they're going to ask their date of birth. They're going to ask their height. They're going to ask their weight. Guys, we do have an underwriting guide that has height and weight charts on there. Be sure you don't write anybody that's 4'3" and weighs 300 pounds. That won't go through, and you're wasting your time. So unless it's, of course, an open enrollment or guarantee issue. So make sure that you're familiar with the underwriting guide on the height and weight chart. They're going to verify their address and their zip code. They're going to ask again city and state, their telephone number. And the good thing about this is, have you ever got home after you've written an application on somebody only to see you missed, oh, I forgot to ask how much they weighed, or I forgot to ask how much they, how tall they weigh, or I forgot to get a signature somewhere. By doing this, you don't have to worry about any mistakes on the app, because every complete thing on this application that you normally would be required to fill out, we're going to ask on the telephone. So you don't have to worry about mistakes when you get home. Sometimes we get in a hurry, and I'm really bad about talking a lot when I'm in a home and get off track or something, and I'll think, I got everything on there, and I'll get home only to find out, I missed some stuff. And if you guys have been in the sales field, you know what I'm talking about if you've been out there a while. It's easy to get in a hurry and miss things. So those are some of the basic things that they're going to ask. And then they're going to verify their medical information, or their Medicare eligibility and information. And when you look at the app, if you know what I'm talking about, they'll be talking about, are you covered under Part A and B? If yes, what is your effective date? If no, when is your eligibility date? They're just going right down the application just like you would. They're going to verify that they are or are not on Medicaid. They'll ask you if they're in a guaranteed issue period. Do they have another policy in force? And that's where you get into the Medicare and insurance information on the application. They're going to ask things like, did you turn 65 in the last 6 months? Did you enroll in Medicare Part B? Basically what they're doing right here at this point, guys, gals, they're going right down questions 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. They're going to find out whether they're if they have a group plan. They're going to find out if they have an existing Medicare supplement policy in force. Basically, again, just going right down the application, avoiding mistakes, getting everything filled in. They're going to ask the name of the company, the paid to date, and at that point, what will happen is they'll have all that done, all the pertinent information before they get to the health questions, and now they're going to start and go right on down through the health questions. So the underwriter will start out. They're going to read a HIPAA statement. We have a compliant HIPAA statement condensed down to where at the end when they say, do you agree to this, and the client verifies yes, that's all voice recorded. So the HIPAA statement is been sent to all the departments of insurance that we sell in, and it is voice compliant. So it's all recorded. You don't have to have a HIPAA form sent to us. We get that right there while we got them on the phone. Then they're going to start asking the health questions. Now, important that you have your homework done when you're sitting there with the client. And we have what we call a cheat sheet that I will show you here in a minute. They're going to go right down through the health questions, and I prepare my client for this. I don't, tell them how to answer the questions, but I will always have read through the health questions, and when I get done with that, I'll say, now, Mrs. Jones, when the underwriter comes on the phone, she's going to ask you the exact same questions that I asked you. These are yes, no questions. When they ask that first question, are you currently hospitalized, or have you been confined to a nursing facility, or are you bedridden or in a wheelchair? That is no, if that is actually the truth. When we ask if they've been in a hospital 2 or more times in the last 1 year, I don't want you to say, well, no, but I had a hernia operation about 1.5 years ago. Ask yes or no is all they need to reply. So make sure your clients understand that these are yes/no applications, and that all they need to do is simply verify yes or no. They're going to ask for the medications. That would be on page 5 of the application. Very important that you understand that they're going to ask the medication's name, the date they were originally prescribed for that, the dosage and the frequency, and the diagnosis for what that medication's for. So if they come on and they say, I was taking amlodipine, they're going to ask them, well, how many times a day have you been taking that, and how long have you been taking it, and what is that for? Even though the underwriter knows what it's for, it's very important that your insured knows what it is for. So make sure that you, if you're in the home, like I said, I always fill all this out so that the client's got it right there in front of them, so that they get a little nervous sometimes, or maybe they don't hear as well. But the underwriters are very, very patient on the phone, and are also very thorough. They help the client out as far as that goes. Once they get the medications down, at that point they're going to ask the client, do you give me authorization for a prescription drug background check? So make sure that you tell your client, we're going to do a background drug check through Milliman. And that way, when they ask that question, they'll say yes, and we can go ahead and get started on that authorization for checking the medications. Now, when you get into these medications, I had a situation the other day where I was asking, the lady had given me her information, and the underwriter says, well, I can't remember the lady's name. She called her by name, and she said, there was one other drug you were taking that's showing up in your background check. Well, the lady didn't have a clue. She didn't have any idea, so the underwriter kind of prompted her with what that medication was for, and then she finally said, oh yes, I had shingles earlier in the year, and I was taking, she said, I don't remember what it was, so the underwriter just told her what it was, and she said, that's what I was taking, I no longer take that. So they're very, very good on the phone, and they will work with your client in those types of situations. So I guess what we're saying is, once we get the address and zip code on there, we'll verify while we're asking questions. So it's a process that it doesn't take very long for them to click the button and their history. We've got all the other history entered into the system. You hit the button and bing, it's there. So once they get through that, then we're going to verify the payment information, and we're going to do the same thing that the application shows. We're going to get started with their bank draft authorization. They're going to get the premium amount. We're going to obtain their bank routing number. They're very good at having the clients look at their check and pointing out that it's to the far left at the bottom of the check, and it's a 9-digit number, so they're very good at helping the client get the right information to them. Then they will ask for their account number, and once they get that bank routing number, it will tell them the name of the bank. So it may be, once that routing number's out there, they'll read back to the client, so Miss Jones, you're banking at the Farmers Bank in Unionville, Missouri, and they will verify that. So they're extremely helpful on the phone when it comes to this kind of stuff. Then they're going to ask the client again to select or re-verify a draft date for their automatic bank draft. They will work with you also as when they want that first draft to come out, and they will verify that with the client. And then they're going to record and do a voice verification, which would be the client's verbal signature and authorization. So at that point, once they have got that verbal signature, they're going to ask the client to pass the phone back to you, the agent. And at that point, formal approval will either be given or denied. We, of course, want a good result. We want an approval for that. Again, they're going to have you now on the phone. They're going to verify the effective date and the draft date with you. And at that point, she's going to say, Joe, your policy number is 3876561. And you write that down, and if you're in a replacement notice, if you're doing a replacement policy, you're definitely going to want to write that on the replacement notice, so when you send that in, it'll have that policy number established to it. And at that point, guys, gals, the policy becomes effective, or at the effective date that you request. So if I was writing an app today and they'd already paid their premium for this month, I would probably make it effective on September the 1st, and then I would take steps to go ahead and make sure that the current insurance that the lady has or man has, and I'd make arrangements to help them cancel that. The last thing you want, if you've been in this business any length of time, there's probably not a person on the phone that hasn't had 2 bank drafts for 2 different insurance companies come out. So you want to make sure, now that you know the policy is issued in the home while you're there, that that policy can now be canceled or set up for cancellation, and you can help your client do that. You can't cancel it for her, but you can sure give her the tools to do that with and to guide them. Just makes her know that you're doing your job correctly and that you're taking time to help them. So that basically is what is required if you are in a kitchen table situation. The policy has been issued, you have a policy number established, you have now got the ability to go ahead and cancel their current insurance or help them to cancel their current insurance, and you can move off to the next situation or your next appointment knowing that a good result was had for you and the insured both. So that's what's involved in the kitchen table process. So now what we want to talk about is what we do on a remote call center sale. As you can see, you got a guy sitting there at his office now making phone calls and trying to generate sales through a call center, or maybe your own personal calling center that you have in your home. I know it's not uncommon. A lot of agents sell over the phone, and so we want to show you how we use this process in this situation. So I guess what the first thing you would do is you'd make your phone call out to the potential client, and you would go through your sales process on however you do that over the phone. You'd want to make sure that the client is agreeable, and you have asked the health questions so you know that you have a good risk. And at that point, once everything is complete, then you're going to pick up the telephone and you're going to call the 800 or the 866 number again. You're going to get the underwriting department on there, and the application will be completed just like it was in the first situation. The underwriter will go through that, and the policy will be issued. You will have the policy number again established just like you did in the kitchen table selling, and we'll break that down just a little bit, kind of hear how we going, what we want you to do in a call center or a calling situation. So basically, the process is basically going to be the same as a kitchen table sale. You're going to do your three-way telephone call. You'll be on the phone the entire call. Very important in the call center situation, guys, that you are quiet. You let the insured answer the questions. I have had situations where maybe the insured doesn't hear so well, and the underwriter will, of course, verify her name when she gets on there. So you might repeat a question if a client, let the underwriter do it a couple of times. If the insured still can't hear, a lot of times the guy that's making the initial outbound call has the best connection, and you might just repeat the question. It says, well, Mary, she needs your social security number or something like that to help out a little bit. Just make sure that you're quiet as much as you can be, and do not do any coaching. Again, the underwriters are very adept to picking up coaching on that. So that's something we want to make sure that you don't do. Now, again, it's important that you make sure that you have already made the sale over the phone before you call the tele-underwriting department. It's have you went through the health questions? Have you went through the medication? Have you got verification on name, address, height, weight, all the important stuff that you need to do. When I do a over-the-phone sale, I fill out the app right there just so I've got the information in front of me for my own records. Now, some people don't do that, but I always do that. Again, you got to make the sale before you get the underwriting department on the phone. So I make sure that I've got information in front of me in case there is an issue on the phone on a three-way call, to where that you can help out should you need to. Okay, so we as a company fully support this. As our owner says, we're all in. This is an excellent process if you're running a call center situation. Let me give you an example. Say it's at the end of the month, and I've already went through this a little bit, but I want to recover it. Say it's at the end of the month, you're in a call center situation, or even at the kitchen table it works well, and somebody's sitting there and they've got a huge rate increase coming up. You can pick up the phone, get the underwriting out of the way, get your policy number established, avoid your client having to pay another month's high premium. As the example I gave earlier, the lady was paying $210, it was going to $290. She avoided having to pay that extreme premium again. You save her money, and she's going to be very thankful for that. So again, guys, if you're running a call center platform, try this. I think you're going to like it. You'll be better at it the second time than you were the first time. You'll be better the third time than you were the second time, and so on. It just gets better the better you do it, because you'll start to learn what we expect as an underwriting standpoint platform, and you will learn how we handle the process, and you'll just keep getting better and better at it. And once you get to where you got this down to a science, you will not want to ever do it any other way, I'm here to tell you. It helps you play defense with your existing clientele. I know people out there, some of you got a large block of business, and it's not uncommon. We're coming up on the last half of this year, getting ready to roll into 2013. Not uncommon for a lot of companies out there to take large rate increases prior to the first of the year. So you can kind of play defense with your existing client. Once you get that rate increase, you can get them on the telephone. You can say, Mary, XYZ company's taking a 15% rate increase. Your premium's going up from $150 to, $180, whatever it would be. And I've got another option here for you. Should you be able to qualify, I can keep your premium back down in the $150 range. Go through the rest of the application, get the information, and when she says, well, that sure sounds good, you can say, well, let's get the underwriting department on the phone and see if you qualify. So if she qualifies, that's one way that you just went. That's one person you don't have to go see. Because if you're like a lot of people out there, when that block of business gets bigger, it just gets harder and harder and harder to go see all these people when you have a rate increase. And it kind of keeps your competitor down the street from beating you to it. So you can pick up the phone, get them enrolled, and at that point it can kind of help you expand your footprint and retain your own block of business. Great system. I encourage you to try it. Okay, so there's some shortcuts in what we call as a cheat sheet. We are the company. We created this cheat sheet, so don't think it's against the rules to use it. We want you to make sure that you make the sale again before you call. You want to make sure your client can hear, and if they can't, if they have trouble hearing, establish that with the underwriter when you first get on the phone. So just tell the underwriter, say, now, Mr. or Mrs. Jones has a hard time hearing, so if you could speak slow and a little louder than normal, we would greatly appreciate it, and we will work with you in those situations. So we want you to prepare your client. We want you to have their Social Security number readily available. Make sure they have their Medicare number. Usually it's the same as their social with the letter A, but there's a lot of situations you'll run into where maybe they're drawing off of their deceased husband, so their social and their Medicare number may be two different numbers. Make sure that the client has a void check or a blank check in front of them so that they can take that banking information right off of that and read it right back to the underwriter. Make sure that you get the replacement form to us if you're in a replacement situation. We don't require a replacement form in a guarantee issue situation or an open enrollment situation. But if you're replacing a policy outside those two situations, make sure that you're getting the replacement form to us. The bank draft information. Make sure that the bank draft date has been established. Make sure that they have their medications already out there so that they're familiar with the questions we're going to ask there. Make sure that they have their doctor's name and telephone number available. We do not need the address for the doctor. It's just like it is on the application. If you look at on page 5 where it says primary care physician information, we ask for the doctor's name and telephone number. So make sure that that's readily available. And then again, make sure that you have read the important statements to be read and signed by the applicant on page 3. Again, that will be asked of you and also maybe of the client. So that's kind of a little cheat sheet. Again, should you need that at the end of this, we can email it to you. We have all these slides that we have here on the webinar today that is available to you. All we have to do is get your email address and know that you want it. So make sure that if you want one, to let us know. And the last most important thing is, remember, do not coach the client any more than what you're looking on this sheet right here. To me, this is not coaching, this is preparation. And make sure that you and the client are prepared. And again, like I was telling you earlier, guys, gals, the second time you do this, you'll do better than the first, and the third, you'll do better than the second. So the replacement form can be faxed to 1-800-506-8295. And make sure, again, I always encourage the salespeople to put the policy number on that replacement form. Okay, so in review, just to kind of talk about what we have, and then we will kind of open it up to questions here shortly. The policy is completely issued over the phone. This is not like an e-app to where you fill out an application on your computer, hit a button, send it to the underwriting, then the underwriting has to go through its process. Again, that takes 7 to 10 days. In most situations, I've seen it as high as 2 and 3 weeks. So the policy will be completely issued over the phone. The policy number established, the whole ball of wax. Your coverage will be vested. The policy, again, the policy number is given. It's a 100% result. You will be able to save on a trip back should the policy be declined. You're already there, or if you're on the phone, you'll be able to go right into another presentation on maybe another possibility with another company. And we do not care if you still want to use paper applications. You're more than happy to have you do that. But what we really want to do in this environment is help you save time and money. So give this process a try. I'm not saying you have to do it every time. Just take some time, get familiar with it, and try it. But again, we sure not telling you that's what you have to do. You're more than happy to use paper applications should you choose to. Okay, we get asked a lot, will we get a copy of the policy? You will get the policy sent to you should you choose that, and there is a complete copy of the Tele app taken in the current policy that will be issued. In other words, page 1 through 7 will be in that policy of our application, and it will have typewritten information so it's easy for you to read, and you can log that into your tracking situation, and if you want to do that, if you have the policy made to yourself, everything in that application will be in the policy. Okay, again, I want to cover the next day pay to make sure you're familiar with that. A lot of times people hear next day pay and they think they're right today, they're paid tomorrow. Money has to change hands. In other words, we can't pay you until we have drafted money. So if you put on that application, do not draft their bank account, say you wrote it today and you said do not draft their bank account until September the 1st. We can't pay you unless we have drafted the first month's premium. So what generally will happen if you ask for a September 1 payment, the underwriter will establish with the client while they're talking to them about the premium information, they're going to say, Ms. Jones, that 150 will draft in the next day or two. Is that okay with you? I mean, they will ask them, is that okay? And if she says, oh, well, you know, that's going to put me in a bad situation, can you wait until the 1st of September? We will certainly do that, but we can't pay a commission until some type of payment is received. So as soon as we receive that, you're going to get paid. Have any questions, again, get a hold of us at the end of the webinar and we will try and answer that a little bit more in depth. Okay, everything that we have talked about here is going to be live on www.heartlandagent.com. Be sure and check out our website. A lot of times people will call in, they've never been on the website, but on that website you can track your applications, you can track if you've had clients that have had claims, you can certainly track that also. The hours for the tele-underwriting are right here. Depending on which time zone you're in, you can kind of see that we are very, very accommodating there with what we're doing on this tele-underwriting program. If you're in the central time zone as I am, we're open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Friday, we're open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we knock off an hour on Friday, knock off 1 hour early on Friday. So there is plenty of time there for you to get a hold of people should you need to get a hold of us, and we are here for you. We want to try and make this as easy on you as possible. The two numbers you're looking at there, the 866-916-8818 is the underwriting number, and the fax number is 800-506-8295. And should you need a contact sheet, if you haven't received one, we've been sending these out on a regular basis, but if you do not have one, our email addresses will pop up here shortly, and you can request one of those, or just call us and ask, either way, whatever you want to do. The housekeeping, talk a little bit about that. We have increased commissions on Plan D and G. You can talk to your upline, or if you are an upline, you can call and talk to us about that. I'm not going to mention any numbers here because I don't know if you're a licensed only agent and you have an agency that's setting appointments, 4 or 5 appointments a week for you. Obviously, that's going to be different than if you were just out there working as a strict broker. So the Secure Advantage Hospital Indemnity Plan, I'll put that up here because we're rolling into the Medicare Advantage season. Should you have interest in a hospital indemnity program to go right along that ties in great with Medicare Advantage, please give us a call at the end of the webinar. We have done several Secure Advantage webinars, doing another one here in the near future. You can call and get our schedule. It's a great, great little product. It'll help you increase your sales by quite a bit, help you increase your income by quite a bit, and it's a great product to add on to Medicare Advantage. So if you have any interest in that, feel free to call us. That season is right around. I know that a lot of people out there are doing their certifications right now. Okay, there's the contact information. Again, that is a sheet we can get to you if you do not have it. That is pretty much our policy owner services number. our tele-underwriting number, the agency services that rings in to the home office here in Blue Springs, Missouri, and then a new business fax number, and the mailing address at Salt Lake City where the TPA is located, and then our address here in Blue Springs, Missouri. So that pretty well wraps up what I have to talk about. Again, my name is Bill Ellsworth. There's my email address. If you have licensing questions, you can sure get a hold of Dolly Gatton. Or if you have marketing questions, get a hold of Rashawn or Cindy. And if you need supplies or need your password reset for the heartlandagent.com, then you can get a hold of Amber, and she will help you reset your password and walk you through the website should you have any questions. So again, that's all I have. I'm going to open it up to any questions. If Rashawn has any questions, she can go ahead, Rashawn, and read those. We'll try and answer those and then get you back to get your week started.
I have a couple questions. The first one I have is, can the bank draft date be after the effective date? They said, for example, the policy effective date is 9/1, but the client does not get paid until 9/3.
Absolutely. Now, let me address that a little farther. If you were doing, let's say you were doing a telesales today, the underwriter will ask you when that first draft. Generally, we're going to draft within the first 3 or 4 days so that we can make that policy effective on 9/1. They will establish with you, we're going to draft that in the next couple of days. Once they get the client on the phone, if that's a problem, they will work with her. We don't want to make your client mad and have them cancel because we drafted and overdrafted your account. So they're very thorough with that, but the answer to that question is yes. I usually always put it like the 5th if I know they're getting their Social Security within the first day or two. Sometimes they don't get it to the 2nd or 3rd week of the month, and I may ask for a 15th of the month effective date. So, but the underwriter's very good at working with the client when they have them on the phone. They're going through the banking information. They will establish that to where everybody's satisfied.
And I have a couple questions regarding the replacement form. They wanted to know, once the policy is issued, how soon do they have to have the replacement form sent back?
We want it as quickly as possible, of course, but we will allow up to 2 weeks. And if that's a problem, like maybe something happened or you went on vacation or something, just let us know. We'll always extend that, but they're going to give you 14 days anyway. Let me give you 2 situations. If you're in the home selling and you do a telesales, get the replacement form signed right then and there and fax it in. If you're doing a remote sale, the replacement form will be mailed to the client for signature with the policy. Now that depends on whether you want us to mail it to them or to you as to how that goes, but I like things come to me. That way I can verify it, log the information down, and at that time I'll sign that replacement form because it'll be in there, and I'll make sure that I call the client, say, Miss Jones, got the policy back, everything's fine. The only thing I need you to do is sign it and put it in the postage paid envelope that it's stapled to. So it'll be a yellowish or an orange colored envelope that the replacement form will be stapled to, and it is a postage paid envelope for them to mail it back.
Well, you just answered the next question, because I had a question regarding whether the client mails the replacement form or does the agent mail it, and you just answered that.
Okay.
And at this time, that's all the questions we have for this webinar.
Okay, folks, I really appreciate you taking time out of your Monday morning. I know this is usually one of the busiest days that we have. Normally we don't like to hold a webinar on Monday, but we wanted to get this one out because we had some people that really wanted to hear it. And again, try the telesales. I think you will like it. If you have problems with it, my name's right there at the top. Let me know what the problem was. I'll address it, because our job here at Heartland National Life is to make your life easier, not harder. The people that run this company have come from the sales background. We know what it's like to be out there, and we know if the salespeople are happy, things go well. Kind of like if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Well, this is the same thing. If the salespeople ain't happy, nothing good happens, and we don't want that. Our life here is to make your life easier. And again, I want to thank you for joining our webinar.